Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to Pushing the Limits. It's fantastic to have you here with me today. I have a wonderful gentleman for you that you're going to love his story and his passion and his drive. It's going to be so exciting. I have Dr. Anthony Balduzzi with me. Welcome to the show, Anthony. It's fabulous to have you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the pronunciation on the last name. Very Italian. I like it.
It might be my Maori heritage. I think there's a little bit of similarity in the language and the way it's spoken. So, I'm glad I got it right.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's fantastic. So Dr. Anthony, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, because you've got a very interesting backstory that really sort of touched my heart, because I was like, yeah, I can totally relate. Different story, but a similar drive and passion that you bring to life because of what's happened to you. So give us the your background story a little bit.
For sure. And I'll maybe start from like what I do right now, and we'll kind of work our way backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Is I run two health, fitness, and wellness communities for dads and moms, particularly those over 40.
Mm-hmm.
They're called Fit Father Project and Fit Mother Project. And so me and my team, we dedicate all of our time to supporting middle-aged parents to get strong and fit and create healthy cultures in their homes and help their kids get healthy and just have longevity and strength and basically go against the modern current of an unhealthy society. So this is what I do with my time. And when I was growing up, the reason I got passionate about this is because I watched my own dad basically bust his butt and work really hard. And in the process, he neglected his health, and his health got really bad. He got a cancer diagnosis when he was in his late 30s. And throughout my entire childhood, I just basically watched him wither away. He did all of the conventional cancer treatments, chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. He had 2 brain surgeries. He had brain cancer. And he ended up dying when he was 42 years old. And I was 9 at the time when I witnessed this. And it was such a pivotal moment in my life, not just because it was the most painful thing I'd ever experienced and it just shook up my whole family structure, but I also had this aha moment a couple months after he died. And I realized fundamentally that like health is at the foundation of everything we love. And in my young brain at the time, I was like, man, I want to learn how to get myself healthy so that never happens to me. So I can be there to take care of my mom, my little brother. And I just want to become so strong that I wouldn't have to experience what my dad had. And I had this idea that we could have this integrated life of like strong body, strong mind, and we didn't have to die and get sick. So the way I started to heal from my dad's death is my mom gave me a pair of his old dumbbells, and I'd hide them under my bed and I'd pull them out every night, and I started to train and exercise. And what was amazing about this experience for me is I was certainly getting physically stronger, but I realized that my mindset and my emotions were also healing in the process of me exercising and getting physical. And I'm like, wow, there's something really deep and profound here. And it kind of ignited this love for fitness that has propelled me over the next several decades of my life. I suppose it's like a beautiful thing to be able to take a really tragic experience like my dad's passing and turn it into a mission to now help busy parents in a very similar position. Like they know they want to do better, can't find a way to get it all to fit in with the right routines. And so it's basically spurred me on. And I could go deeper into the life story if you'd like. I mean, there's a lot of experiences that happened since that
Yeah,
time, but
do
that's the
do.
root. That's the root of where it started.
Yeah, no, do share the other couple of stories that because I think that they're also pivotal to your
Mm.
to your experience and things that we have commonalities with, I think.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll keep on going. Um, I got into fitness, and fitness was one of the first things, especially when I was a young man. It was like it gave me a sense of empowerment to be strong and to have a sense of confidence with my body and to engage in sport. I did a lot of weightlifting and wrestling and martial arts, and I eventually got into competitive bodybuilding, which is such a fascinating thing to get interested in. You want to do all these things with your nutrition, your supplementation, so you can get in a little speedo on stage and flex your muscles. But I was just so passionate about it. And I think, now that I look back with a little more clarity, a big drive of that kind of came from the pain of my dad's passing. Like I wanted to be this really strong, respected man. So I pushed into bodybuilding, and it was a wonderful experience because I did it for competitive bodybuilder for over 10 years, and I competed in dozens,
Wow.
tons of shows, maybe not dozens, but like, close to, 10, 15 shows.
Mm.
Did a lot of contest prep, learned how to take my body to a very high level. And then what was very interesting is towards the end of my competitive bodybuilding career, also when I was in medical school, I went on a skiing trip with one of my close friends, and we were doing some snow skiing, and we were skiing very aggressively, like young men fueled with the testosterone of youth. And I had an intuition this day that it was prudent for me to slow down, but I completely ignored it. I ignored all the signs, and I just kept on charging down the hill, harder and faster than ever. And there was a one moment, where I'm carving down this hill and I jump, and this was like intentional, of course, flying in the air. And I was going to land further down the slopes, but I didn't land right. The skis blew off my feet and I'm tumbling, I'd say over 30 kilometers per hour, head
Wow.
over foot. I have a helmet on and I slam into a tree full force and
Oh,
my leg explodes into pieces. My arm is broken, leg is broken. And it was one of those moments where like if I would have hit the tree in any other way, instantly dead.
wow.
But it just so happened that, my femur took the blow. And I think the only reason the surgeons told me this time I actually survived that fall is because my quad muscles were so big from all the squats I've been doing for the last basically 20 years that it kind of absorbed the shock and saved my life. But that was a life-changing experience for me to get to a point in my life where I spent so much time building my body up, having my identity very tied to my fitness. And then in a moment of, bad judgment and ignoring the signs, I basically destroyed my body and destroyed it to such an extent that we're talking like learning how to walk again. I had
Wow.
six surgeries to reconstruct my leg over 6 years, including leg lengthening, where they sawed my femur in half and had to extend it. But what was
Wow.
powerful about this experience, though, is it taught me a lot. I consider it a bit of like a mental, emotional, spiritual awakening where I realized I was not just this bodybuilder guy or whatever I thought my ego structure was at the time. I began to soften. I had to learn about healing. I had to learn about surrender. I had to learn about setting new goals and finding new motivations beyond just pushing myself in my own way to the max that I could in the bodybuilding space. And so it opened up another way of relating to people, relating to people who have deep physical challenges, and then also balancing these emotional forces when we're motivated to like want better and to strive and to set goals, but at the same time accepting the changing nature of our bodies, whether you've had a severe injury and that's changed the dynamics of how your structure works, or you're just getting older and you don't have 20-year-old knees anymore. Like these bodies teach us so much about this idea of surrender while still striving. And so I
Mm-hmm.
learned how to dance with that. And I guess like along this way, I'm running this company and we've helped over 60,000 men and women in over
Wow.
100 countries go through this. So I'm helping them with their journeys too. So it's been a really amazing life so far of teaching and being a champion for health, helping other people achieve their results, walking my own path as vulnerably as I can be. And yeah, so I guess that's kind of life story in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely beautiful. And thanks for sharing so openly. I really appreciate the vulnerability and the openness, because it's really, and I think what drives us both is a passion to help people. We both do it in slightly different areas. And
Mhm.
you've got the Fit Father and the Fit Mother project. And like when you experienced your dad's journey and his passing, did that really make you want to fight for families? Like is family, like seeing children having been a child that suffered so much, do you want to prevent that for everybody else? What is the thing that drives you for this particular type of project?
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, absolutely, it's 100% about families. But I didn't necessarily have that awareness right when I was 10 and I was starting it. At first, it
No.
started through the lens of myself and my own self-healing and developing my own strength. And I think when one does develop strength, it naturally starts to resonate outwards to start to affect, the environment around the strong individual. You rub off on people. So now as a dad myself, like I see how pivotal it is to give my daughter all the best inputs that I possibly can so she can thrive and be well. As an adult citizen of this world, I see that now what's happening with our culture is this generation of kids being brought up right now are less physically robust, more psychologically addicted, more mental and emotional disorders. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that we have deviated so far from living in accordance with the natural law that makes our bodies healthy. So I'm seeing this kind of cultural thing that I believe is such a powerful force affecting families. And the funny thing is the only way to fix it individually for us is to take control of our families, our culture, our input. So like I think families are the way we heal the culture. It's like the cell needs to get healthy insofar as the whole organ system can get healthy. So
Love it.
I view it in that way
Mm.
as well. And I think at least in my journey, when becoming a parent is a pivotal threshold and a portal that you step through where your motivations get very, very deep, beyond just your own well-being. Now you're here to provide and create and shape and it puts more weight to your motivations for why to stay healthy yourself. I mean, certainly there's aesthetics and performance that we all kind of have an idea of what we'd like to look like, what like to feel like, and like to be able to do. But I think now the deeper conversation with health and we're as parents is like, how do we actually model these behaviors for our kids? How do we make choices today that make it likely that we're going to have great mobility and strength and be able to participate with our grandkids or great grandkids down the line? And so I think it's a powerful aspect to be a parent and to tie that deeply into your health, because that's what helps us stay motivated. It's not like there's a lack of information about what we need to be doing to be healthy. And now it's about how do we actually align our behaviors and stay on track and stay consistent. And a lot of those come down to our values and our families that go beyond just physical fitness. It's like whole person fitness and maybe even whole family fitness.
Yeah, absolutely beautifully put. And, you know, when you just look around, you just have to look around you in your own society to see we're not doing well, you know, and there are so many reasons for that. And I think you and I align on a number of the things that are going wrong in our world, from everything from, you know, big pharma to toxins to the food industry to the, you know, what do you see as the big problems as far as that goes, you know, from maybe a food perspective, an exercise perspective, a work stress life perspective? Where are we going wrong, and then where can we intervene?
For sure. I think it's a great frame to look at ourselves from the primal lens. And also the lens too, that I think we have the misconception that humans, due to our technology, are somehow disconnected from nature and the natural cycles. We could not be more intimately connected. And I'll go through and explaining this. Even like the sun that rises in the morning, that light interfaces with our eyes and actually triggers our brain to release serotonin, which makes us feel fantastic, connected, happy, you know, secure. And later in the evening, that serotonin gets converted to melatonin, which basically restores our brain and our body, enhances our immune system and our longevity. So even just the natural light cycle
the cortisol
is something that,
and melatonin,
right? The cortisol, melatonin balancing, the light itself. And I bring up light first because obviously it's a more important input than people realize for the body, but also just because it is so primary to the experience of the physical natural world that we have. You know, the sun, the energy, and now we have these phones with artificial light. So it's almost like a nice analogy of how disconnected we are, because we even forget about how primary that is. So light and circadian rhythm is a huge input. And what's fascinating right now is we have a very busy, fast-paced life, especially in the West, in the United States and New Zealand. Like there's a lot of busyness and you know, there's stress. And the people who are doing really well right now have healthy stress outlets, meaning they are typically using physical activity or good sleep and restoration habits or good social connections to balance the nervous system and to create more resilience. And then the people who are really struggling are feeling that exact same background stress, but then they don't have these foundational things around their food, their exercise, or their sleep and recovery. So they do the exact opposite. They eat the unhealthy inflammatory foods, they skip the exercise, and then they stay up late on technology and dysregulate their circadian rhythm further. So it's like the same background context, two different ways to respond to it, and one group thrives, the other group deeply suffers. Now, I think food is really foundational, and I think it's probably one of the things that's changed the most over the last several hundred years, with the fact that we have this huge marketing engine behind hyper palatable processed foods. You know, there's a lot of money to be made in food. We're feeding lots of people, and we've gotten away from what was like a more natural, like you were farming or you had people around you who had cows and you're eating just natural non-processed foods. It's like the supermarket's the antithesis of that. And most of the foods today are going to dysregulate your blood sugar. They're high sugar, they're inflammatory, they're sprayed with pesticides like the glyphosate pesticide and atrazine. These are two common pesticides. They wreck your health like on deep levels. So it's like basically we're eating crap food. And food's fascinating because like it's more important than exercise. And I think it's important for people who are athletically minded to know, because you could go train really hard and eat poisonous food and your body will eventually break down. Whereas if you eat really nourishing food and don't do that much high intensity exercise, you can still be quite healthy. Like if you look at the people who are like the pockets of longevity, the blue zones, the centenarians around the world, the people who live to 100 plus, they're not doing like high intensity exercise, but they're eating natural foods, they're walking, they're gardening, and they would benefit from doing some really good exercise. But the point is like food is more foundational, because food is either creating inflammation or it's reducing it. And quite frankly, most food right now is more or less toxic. And I'm not going to jump on an exact bandwagon if I say you need to eat, you know, plant-based or keto, but I think you need to find a system that works well for you, that's centered around natural whole foods, you know, nutrient dense. You need to figure out which foods work best for you and your goals. And I think, and like that's a journey to take. It's not like a simple thing where I can hand someone one given diet. It's like a journey of self-discovery. And I think the cost of that is it takes a little bit to figure out. The benefit of that is you get a system that serves you for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And this is obviously what and I'm sure you help people with as well, is getting the food component down.
Yeah. And I think, like it is, I do a lot of genetics in my practice, and a lot of functional medicine testing and things like that. And genetics is so interesting, right? Because
for sure.
We have these huge debates online. Everybody's like carnivore, keto, plant-based, vegan, vegetarian, keto, carnivore, whatever, like just all over the show. And everyone's adamant that theirs is right, and it's just, for me, it's hilarious. It's we genetically different, quite so. We have different comorbidities. We have different stages of life. We have different, we're women, we're men, there's all this nuance to that conversation that's completely missing. And it's only my way is the highway, like that's not helpful. I think we can all agree that processed food's crap. Anything that comes in a man-made packet is probably to be avoided where possible. It's not going to be possible all the time. I get that. I'm not perfect. No one's perfect. But if we can focus in on real whole foods, vegetables, whether you're a vegetarian or not, depends on whether you, have meat or not, but good quality fats, good quality vegetables, good quality, unprocessed foods. I think let's agree on that part, and then let's agree probably 100%. Too that we have too much sugar. I'm doing a lot of study at the moment on glycation and transglycosylating agents, and what can we do to
explain that to people. Basically, it's like sugar gets stuck to substances in our body that literally age us. Like when we measure diabetes, from how much of your hemoglobin in your blood is glycosylated, but also like the neurodegenerative diseases are basically occurring in the presence of blood that has a lot of sugar in it floating. Like the advanced glycation end products, it causes proteins to fold improperly. It causes oxidative damage and stress to the body. So having regulated blood sugar is essential for long-term health. Becoming insulin sensitive, which goes along with the regulated blood sugar, exercise helps with that. And that doesn't mean you need to be on a super low carbohydrate diet, but it does mean you need to be on a carb controlled diet with regular exercise and all that kind of stuff. And, healthy fats and vitamin rich foods. We need to get focus as much on our micronutrients as we do on these macronutrients. We get
took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah.
It took the words out of my mouth, because we do focus on the macros and not the micros, I think.
For sure.
And then this is the other problem, is that some of, our food is really hard to get good micronutrients now.
Yes.
And I do believe in supplementation because of that. And we have to, there's good and there's bad supplements, of course, and we won't go into that, but it really is important to sort of know your nutrient status. Some of the basics like magnesium and zinc and vitamin D and the folate and things like that. At least if you can't, you do the full organic acids testing and the full whatever, that would be great. But at least understand that those sort of things, those bases need to be covered first. First and foremost, And
here's a practical tip, and this is something we teach inside of our Fit Father and Fit Mother programs, is we help people. We like to suggest that people standardize the first meal of the day, just because it's like breakfast and getting your day going is a time where you don't want to do a lot of thinking. You want to eat foods that give you a lot of micronutrients, a lot of energy, keep your blood sugar stable, and like don't bog you down. And so for people, if you can standardize your first meal of the day to make it micronutrient rich, that has proteins, healthy fats, some fiber, a lot of good like plant-derived chemicals and stuff like this, you're going to crush it. So this could look like some kind of power smoothie, which may have some kind of supplement powder in there or other things. It could be some berries, hemp seeds, chia seeds, protein powder, greens powder, like minerals, like whatever's in there. But if you just standardize that first meal of the day so that you hit your macros, it gives you good energy, and it's like a consistent thing you can do every day. The rest of the day can be a little more variable. You at least have this one anchor in. I just want to bring this up because nutrition is about consistency, and consistency is about behavioral psychology. It's not about like just more information about what nutrient is good. It's like, what can you repeat and have nailed down into a habit? So I love standardizing the first meal of the day. I think it's so helpful for people. And it could, but maybe someone's eating an omnivorous diet. It could be like you get some really high quality egg yolks with some berries and avocado, or it could be a vegan protein smoothie, or if someone tolerates oats, fine. There's some overnight oatmeal with a lot of good superfoods in there. Like so many different options, but find your standardized first meal. And I think it's a good tip.
Yeah, and I think and there's a lot of talk around intermittent fasting and time restricted eating and things, and I'm very much that It's good in general, but there are some caveats to that
Yes.
statement, and things like menstruating women and women who have,
Yes.
just had a baby or breastfeeding, or if you've got adrenal issues, HPA axis problems, cortisol problems, maybe not doing the
Hmm.
intermittent fasting if you've just
Yes.
getting over an illness, a virus or something like that, maybe not.
Hmm.
For other people, men probably do better on intermittent fasting as well. So that,
Hmm.
again, once again, there's nuance to conversation and personalization to this that has to come into the conversation. But when you have that first meal, that's exactly what I do. Like I
Yeah,
have quite a lot of adrenal issues because I've had a very stressful
for
last
sure. Put your
decade.
body through a lot of stress. Yeah.
Yeah, I've put my body and my mind through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't intermittent fast at the moment, and what I have is a horrible tasting, awful vegetable smoothie with whatever's in the fridge, like,
Hmm.
or whatever I can get out of the garden at that time. And
Hmm.
it's not about the taste. It's about I've got to get my fiber, my greens, my things
Hmm.
into me in the morning when I've got my best willpower, when I
Yep.
have, because what I find too, and I'd love your take on this, is that as the day goes on, if it's been a very stressful day, and if I'm not
Hmm.
managing my stress properly by doing my exercise and my breath work and my things,
Yeah,
and sometimes we don't because life's in the way, I've lost the plot by 7 o'clock at night,
sure.
like, and that's, I think a lot of people can relate to that. If you don't manage your stress during the day, your ability and your willpower starts to wane. So I start, I make sure that my day begins well, at least. And,
Yes.
and then if things go to custard, and as they sometimes do at
Mhm.
8 o'clock at night, then okay, at least I've got myself, and then I know that, my stress levels are getting up and I better try to manage my stress better.
Yeah.
And the way I do that and is for me, knowing my genetics, I have a lot of adrenaline,
Hmm.
a lot of cortisol, and I need to move all day. So I need
Hmm.
constant movement bouts. Other people don't need that. They need other
Hmm.
things. Working out what your genetics are so that you can tailor your lifestyle to those needs, I really find useful with when I'm
Hmm.
working with people so that they're doing the thing and then putting high quality inputs in. And that early part of the day
Yeah,
sets you up for the rest of the day. I mean,
for sure.
on that point, what is your sort of morning routine look like? When you open your eyes, what happens? What do you do before you even
Okay.
get away?
So, I do a couple things first and foremost. I will rehydrate, and typically that happens before meditation, but sometimes afterwards. So those like the two things. And what rehydration looks like is I'm a huge believer that water is one of the most foundational inputs for our bodies, and that we should be drinking the highest quality water possible.
Mm-hmm.
And how I define that is one, like get water that is well filtered. Every
Mm.
different location has its own kind of
Oh,
like water status. If you can get natural spring water, beautiful. If you're drinking some kind of municipal water, it better be filtered with the best filtration system that you can possibly get.
yep.
I mean, better than, like a little charcoal filter in your refrigerator or something like that's like okay, but you want to be removing chlorine, you want to be removing fluoride, you want to be removing a lot of the different chemicals that
Oh,
are
yes.
that are treated in the waters, all these things. So reverse osmosis or very, very good filtration system is good. And then I like to add in minerals. So there's many ways to do
Mm-hmm.
that. I mean, the simple way could be you get some high quality sea salt, you can put it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm doing a little more advanced than that. So I'm using some humic and fulvic acids. They're like
Yeah,
these
me
mineral
too.
complexes. They're
Love them.
wonderful. So in the morning, water with humic and fulvic acids are really a wonderful way to hydrate. And I actually even have some distilled seawater drops. Actually, companies out of Australia, but they distill down like a lot of high quality seawater, and there's a ton of magnesium, iodine, different kinds of minerals in there. But basically, like the body's electric, and we use water and minerals to conduct electricity in our cells. And so the first thing your body needs in the morning are the minerals and water. And then I have a meditation practice, and that became a very important part of my own healing journey, specifically when I was around my leg and healing, and it was like mental emotional healing, just to be able to sit with my thoughts and feelings and be with what is. And it got very deep from there. So I will sit down. I have a meditation chair in my bedroom, and as well as another room there. And so one of those two places. And I just get into my body, and I've been doing it for so long. It's really just a very enjoyable, relaxing time to sit in. You can think of it as like regulating your nervous system, being with your breath. And I think it sets a tone for your nervous system that is more parasympathetic, not nearly as reactive. And the process can be very deep for helping you work through the subconscious stuff and worries that naturally come up. They'll arise in the mind. You can observe them and feel them and go onward. So for me, it's gotten even deeper. It has spiritual roots for me, and it's very personal. But that's how I start my day, with water and that. I depends on when I have my first meal of the day. It's not always the same. Sometimes I will be fasting and I kind of like am listening and feeling my body, or other times, depending on meetings or if I need to get something in earlier, I'll do it earlier. Like this morning, I had a really plant-based power smoothie. I had it early in the morning,
Hmm.
but that doesn't always happen. I have a cold plunge at my house, and I am a believer in using heat and cold.
Yeah,
And I think
love it.
the caveats on there is like depends on the reason, the season, all that. But over time, the more you use these things, it makes your nervous system more resilient,
Totally.
and it raises some different neurochemicals and hormones that makes you feel very alert and motivated. So I will oftentimes do that before my first meal. And the first meal is variable, but I like very similar to your strategy. I make sure to get like my good quality micronutrients and just good stuff in there. And yeah, and I mean it's a really good key habit. And then now I'm a big believer that for longevity, fasting is helpful, but the deeper idea here is that we need to be in a mix of anabolic and catabolic metabolism,
Absolutely.
right? So like
Yep.
that's just like it's again the cycles of nature. Like we even have the springtime where things are blooming, and then the fall and winter time where things die. I think our nervous systems and our digestive tracts and our modes of metabolism mirror these natural cycles very
Mm,
fundamentally.
mm,
And so times when we're building up, we're feeding amino acids, nutrients, carbohydrates, and the body has insulin signaling, mTOR is raised, we're driving things into cells, we're recovering from exercise. And then we need periods where we allow things to break down, become catabolic, and our body becomes thrifty and recycles damaged immune cells and all this. And so this could be on a daily basis framework of people intermittent fasting, but I'm actually a bigger believer of people doing periodic, deeper fasting. This could look like a 24-hour fast once a week. And again, there's all the prerequisites. Like this may not be
mm.
right for everyone listening, but
No.
I'm just kind of giving like higher level stuff.
Yep.
But a dinner to dinner fast could be a nice pulse of catabolism that happens once a week. And if someone is interested in exploring it more, I do believe there's a lot of health benefits to doing more extended fasts. And there's many ways to play with this, but we just know it activates stem cells, good for
Mm.
getting into some catabolic metabolism. But regardless if you do that, I will say most people's sleep would benefit if you start to eat a little bit earlier. I think we're going to learn more about like clock genes and circadian biology.
Yep.
And I guess I know from tracking my own stuff, like if I eat too much too late, it produces a lot of heat in the body. When I get a bigger blood sugar spike late at night, my sleep is affected. So I like to eat like earlier dinners, like if possible. An earlier dinner, I think, is like going to be beneficial for more people. Just try not to eat a big meal before you go to bed. And it's
Yep.
not because it magically stores as fat. It's probably just because it disrupts your sleep to a certain extent.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the cortisol can wake you up if you've had high blood sugar before you go to
There
bed
you
and having
go.
high carbs, and then your carbs, your blood sugar drops at 2 o'clock in the morning and wakes you up.
Right?
Yeah, I love that, and that I love that there's flexibility within your ideas of how it works for every person, because it is, and it's daunting. You don't want to push someone into something that they're not quite ready for, or you have to step
Mhm.
people back. We have to get
Yep.
people metabolically, I think, first and foremost, getting them metabolically
Yes.
healthy, because you
Yes.
can't put someone into a 5-day fast if they're not metabolically healthy. It's going to be
Totally.
hell, it's going to be
Yes.
absolute hell for them. And we need to step people back into a healthy metabolism first, and then work with them if that's what's required. And that may not be required
Yes.
for everybody at all. But I love that idea, and I've never actually thought of it that way. But the seasons and the mTOR,
Uh-huh.
like the mTOR and the AMPK
Yes, exactly.
pathways, like, and it's
Yes.
really quite frustrating at times, because you're like, hang on a minute, have my head, I'm going to the gym, I want some mTOR. Have I had any supplement that was actually going to be
Yeah.
detriment and catabolic? And it gets quite complex if we get too much into the weeds. But it's about growth. And as a bodybuilder, you'd know this very well. You'd have been mTOR. We've got to
Yes.
build. We've got to
And they
build.
die early,
And they die
over the
early.
anabolic state, like you putting all gas, no brakes. It's so funny how for longevity, we know we want muscle mass heading into old age,
Yeah.
and we want to strength train because it's like the fountain of youth. At the same time, like we do need a good balance of catabolic signaling, and a lot of the drugs that are extending lifespan, like rapamycin, is like
Yeah.
actually blocking mTOR signaling and increasing AKT. So I'll say this, like getting exercise is such a powerful cellular signal for triggering a lot of these benefits of that fasting would have as well. And then doing occasional fasting in whatever way that sees fit for you, or just even having lower calorie days sometimes. But this intermittent pulse of not always being fed all the time, which also comes down to one of my fundamental premises nutritionally, is I think people really need to stop snacking. And I'm not saying like never snack, like snacks are tactical, but the people that are constantly grazing I do believe it's poor for health. It's constantly dysregulating your blood sugar, and I think it's good to have discrete periods of feeding where you get proper insulin signaling, nutrients come in, digestion happens, and then the system gets into rest and
Yep.
extends for time. So I think that's way better advice than what I would have said maybe 15 years ago, which is have many small meals throughout the day,
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
me too. I would have said, as an athlete, you got to eat bloody 6 times a day. And, when we're doing ultras, we're eating every 15 minutes, sticking something in our
Yeah,
mouth when you're running, which, okay, you need a lot of things.
yeah,
And we weren't fat adapted athletes back then. There
yeah,
was not such a thing, but it wasn't the right approach. And when you do extreme sports too, you can, what I try and get
Hmm.
across to people, like having done a lot of extreme sports, is that is also going to set you back from a longevity perspective.
For sure.
Like you have to understand, and there's still reasons to do it, but do it with your eyes open. My eyes were not
Mhm.
open to this, and so I did a lot of damage to my body. Was unable to have children, a lot of things, hormonal problems.
Wow.
Um, because I didn't understand. I thought exercise was good, full stop. And the more you
Yeah,
exercised, the tougher you were, the better you were going to be, the longer you will live, all of that sort of thing. And now it's like, oh damn, I was, like, why didn't anyone tell me about inflammation and overwhelming your systems
for
and
sure.
reactive oxygen species and all of these things that
Yeah.
happen. And
Well, that's
you can almost be sitting on the couch and be healthier than
for
sometimes
sure.
doing ultras.
And that's a nice thing to say. It's like if you think about it all as these different inputs are stresses. And there's a certain amount of stress that is adaptive and helpful for the situation. And then this also comes to maybe when someone gets deeper into their game, is you can really assess with greater awareness, like where your system is at right now, what stress is good stress. So let's say you're in a very busy season of your life, you're pushing it both ends with work. This is maybe not the time to be doing high intensity training blocks on top of that, because that would actually be maladaptive. It'd be better to do more restorative work to pair that with your work life and other demands. So you're not sleeping as much, maybe less high intensity exercise, or maybe you have plenty of time. There's times and seasons to push it. So I think the seasonality concept is so foundational to what I keep on
Beautiful.
bringing up as natural law, right? It's not like the one plan that fits you is going to fit you at all times. It rolls with the different rhythms and seasons of your life. I imagine when you really had to step up and become a caretaker for your mom in a more profound way, it probably wasn't the right time to go like bust butt and like go hard there. Like you getting
Yep.
workouts in when you can, and you're
Yep.
recognizing that it's always a dance. And the
Yes.
cool thing about training and having so much training that you've already done is, yes, there was certainly damage from the intense amount of training that you were doing at that time, but you also have a lot of like memory in your body where it probably doesn't take nearly as much for you now to maintain. So a
Yep.
couple strength training sessions or whatever you end up doing these days can be enough of a pulse to keep your body on track. And so that's the benefit of going further down this road, is like for me right now, I'm in a busy work season. I am doing strength training maybe like twice a week. I would
Yep.
love to do four times a week, but it's twice a week. And like if anyone saw me, like what I looked like, I mean, I wouldn't be at my strongest, but it'd be like, damn, you're in a wonderful shape. And I'm like, well, it's many decades of doing this, but also nutrition's on point. I know the pulses, and it doesn't have to be super crazy right now to look and feel good.
Oh, that's so good. I mean, I do a tenth, like literally a tenth of the
I'm
exercise I
sure.
used to do, and I look better now than I did at
Yeah,
25. And
that's cool.
because I was so inflamed, I was just like,
Yeah,
I had weight issues because I was running thousands of kilometers, like
that's
literally,
wild.
and I was putting on weight. I was losing muscle mass. My hormones, of course, were up the wazoo, and my answer was just go longer, because I didn't understand, and it was my goal by then. It was my sport,
Hmm.
right? But it really was counterintuitive. And now, now I've got a six pack. Now I'm at
Hmm.
55. Now I'm metabolically flexible. Now
Yeah,
I'm, like way less inflammation and inflammatory markers in my body. And
nice.
and that's great, but I'm still undoing some of the damage. My kidneys
For
don't
sure.
work too well, and other things don't work so well because I didn't understand all that nuance. And so trying to get those messages across, and we've all done damage to ourselves, and we have to
Hmm.
try to walk that back. But I love that fact here. Like I too am in a full-on season of work and on a mission
Hmm.
like you are,
Yeah.
and caring for mum 24/7.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's not 4 hours of running a day, like
Right.
it might have been. And that would be ridiculous right now. And like,
Hmm.
and that's okay. And being okay with that. How did you find that from a mental perspective of I used to be this and now I'm not that. And how do you, like, how do you, like, I've struggled with that over the time, and
For
I can
sure.
rationalize it, but how did you deal with that?
I think when I reflect on my direct experiences, like I like literally like I hit a wall, I hit that tree, and it went from like being 100
Yeah.
miles per hour high performance to immediately had no choice but to like surrender to the devastating change in how my body functioned. And I think part of this is like we must accept anytime we're in resistance to what is or what appears to be so, like we're creating a layer of conflict beyond the situation itself. So, like my leg is broken, my arm is broken, I'm learning to rewalk. Like there's a degree of like actual pain and change there, but then there's a layer of mental suffering on top of that where I'm like denying that this has happened. I can't believe this is the case.
Mm.
And I think any kind of mental emotional practices, whether they're breath work, journaling, meditation, where you just get to like feel these things. Like the thoughts and feelings that come up are like they're okay. Like it's just like there is a shedding of every new layer as we continue down our own like healing journeys. I think it can still be motivating to set new goals. So I got
Mm.
very motivated to set goals around okay, when I'm going to walk again and how I actually heal. So moving like not using the same measuring stick that you used to use at that time in your life, it can be helpful to still activate your goal circuitry and feel like
Mm.
you're really moving forward. Yeah, so new goals and challenges, and also I think it's just recognizing the maybe deeper impermanence of all of this. Like we're here to obviously like create things and like achieve, accomplish experience. But at the end of the day, like these bodies are so powerful because we lay them back down to the dirt and they kind of go back to the natural cycle from which they came. So
Yeah.
we'll come face to face with our mortality in some way, shape, or form. The earlier you can start shedding those layers, I think it makes life a little bit easier. And I also would say deepening your perspective of what health means beyond just physical
Yes.
performance
Yeah.
is a really important aspect of that.
Yeah, I agree. Because you can be, sometimes you can, and the bodybuilders are a good example of that, beautiful on the outside, amazing,
Yeah.
incredible looking athletes, but actually quite sick on the
Oh, for
inside if
sure.
you look, and same with ultra runners and I dare say lots of other sports. And it isn't always that the aesthetic matches actually what's going on in the
Mhm.
inside. And it is something that I've really, really struggled with is acceptance of things, and change and aging and all of that. And, I think to a degree we want to go like, I'm going to be the best 55-year-old there is,
Yeah.
um, or with mum's situation, I think not accepting it made me fight, which was good,
Yes.
right?
You
On
need
the other
both.
hand, yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah, like you're like I'm gonna fight. But I've also lost. I lost my dad 3 years ago, and I threw the bus at it. At what he was going through, and I fought with everything, and we lost. So
Hmm.
sometimes you trying to understand. The reasons for things, and you must have faced this when you lost your dad and you're a
Hmm.
child and I was very much an adult, but the grief and the not comprehending it, not accepting it and fighting it, even though when it's happened, like it's still like 3 years later I'm still like, really, is he really gone, that
I
it's
want to
hard.
comment on this. I think it's like I'm sorry for interrupting the tail end of this.
No, go for it.
It's like mirrored in our nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is what gets activated when we have an acute stressor, the fight or flight concept. And then the parasympathetic is when we're in like this relaxed default state of trust and normal processing. And I think we can understand these gears of the nervous system and that we want to be parasympathetic and activate when we need to. And I do think that our relationships to these events in our lives are mirrored in an exact same way. This idea of if we're constantly fighting all the things that are happening, we're engaging this sympathetic resistance mechanism of our minds, and ultimately it boils down to our physiology, which then gets expressed in hormones, which then affects the end organ systems. So I guess I'm coming to say that I think the ultimate way, the easiest way to dance with life is through the lens of trust. It is through the lens of trust that although you may not understand exactly why it's all happening, it is so. And that if you can get to the point of surrender and trust that it's all going to be okay in some way, shape, or form, and then you can kind of relax, I think you're able to be with the same challenge but engage now in this literally parasympathetic way, but also in your mindset and emotions, just like this acceptance aspect. And then you're not engaging with the same like fighting thing.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that you still don't set like a goal and like have a plan and take action, but there's a deeper layer of trust behind it that it actually is okay. It's okay. It's okay. And I think that's the safety that a newborn baby wants when it connects with its mother for the first time. It wants to have this idea that it's okay and the closeness. And I think when we become adults, we don't have that same kind of like very primal bond. So we need almost like do it with ourselves. I just say like, just to kind of round it up, I think that the people that live the longest are those that have this more relaxed physiologic state, outside of, all the other healthy inputs you could do, the ones that can trust and relax. Like you hear about the yogi that lives in the cave that lives to 130 years old, like eating like mung beans and goat milk and basically breathing like 6 times a minute. Like that's a relaxed physiology. It's going to live for a long time. And we're not in that state exactly, especially if we're listening to this podcast. But I think there's a way that we can invite more of that trusting. And that's
Wow.
a process.
That's deep. That's deep, and that's something that I think I'll treasure from this conversation and taken away, because I think, yeah, when you're a warrior sort of mentality and you're a fighter and you're used to fighting, and surrender's not something that's in my
Yeah, right.
vocabulary, or quitting. Learning that dance is a struggle, I think, because you don't want to be that person that doesn't fight. Like if you're not going to fight for your loved ones, who are you going to fight for?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, things do happen to you, like losing dad, and we lost a baby as well. We lost a little boy
Wow.
to spina bifida. You have it can consume you. It can absolutely ruin your future, because you're stuck. You can be stuck in that trauma, that deep trauma that's just stuck there. And I think what you just said makes sense. And it's that dance that I'm still learning to play. I think long road ahead, I think, still. But
I
yeah,
think we
really
all
deep.
are. And I think your exact experiences right now and my exact experiences are what's urging us and nudging us along into
Yeah.
greater levels of acceptance. And it's so beautiful that you're a fighter and you have all that energy. I just think there's a way to embrace it in a less violent, resisting way, but still use that same amazing warrior energy that you have to like do it, but through this embracing. It's like a
Yeah.
soft, it's
It's
a yeah,
often
we said enough. It's a soft and hard at the same time.
the rock and the water. Somehow I'm going to
Yes,
get that mix right.
for sure. I love it.
We're working on it. Hey, I've learned lots today. Anthony, so tell us, just before we wrap it up, like a little bit about your programs and what people can do if they want to reach out to you, because obviously you're a very passionate, caring person. You want to help people. Your programs are really well designed. You're a doctor. You understand all the physiology side of things, but you also understand, but through your background, your experiences. What's involved in your programs, and how do people reach out to you and find you?
Yeah. Well, first off, this has been a fun conversation, and I think it's cool that we ended up in this more mental, emotional dance area, because I think that's just as foundational in what we do with our programs as we do like the actual, here's a good nutrition plan, here's exercise to follow, here's the programming itself, because we gotta, to be successful long term, which we all want, the sustainable success with our fitness, not just these quick fix kind of short things, is we need to address both the mind and then obviously the habits and then the environment. And this is what we do inside Fit Father, Fit Mother. We have it's all delivered via me, my coaching team, and inside our app and our community. So if you go to our websites, fitfatherproject.com or fitmotherproject.com, there are free trials. You can try the whole program for 2 weeks and you get inside. And first off, we help you develop a powerful mission statement and do some mindset work. That's step one. Doesn't take long, but it's very deep, and it helps you get connected to why health matters to you, the vision you have for yourself, and helps to build some new neuro associations to give you a robust statement and
Yeah.
connection to why health matters that serves as like the motivational bedrock of what we layer on top. Next thing is we get into nutrition, and we help people find like their golden through line nutrition plan. So we talked a little bit about like setting go-to meals for your first meal. Are you eating plant-based? Are you eating like keto carnivore? And like we help you figure out what those recipes are for you. And we have members on all spectrums. We have complete vegans, complete
That's
carnivore
cool.
people, and like they're able to slot into what works best for them. And we give you exact recipes that follow on all these different scenarios, figure out the meal timing schedule setup, and then help you work the plan. But nutrition is the second step. Then we have an exercise program that works throughout, like it's over a year in length and has many phases, and people take it in whatever way they want to do. So if you're starting on fat loss or if you want to transition to muscle building, or the kind of workouts we have are a mix of like cardio and strength and mobility all in one. We call them
Yeah.
like metabolic resistance training, which is a great way for people over 40 to train because, you know, you get the benefit of strength training and
Yep. That's what
metabolism
I
boost
do.
of some high intensity exercise. You got it. So it's like, that's why you have abs at your age with the good nutrition, I'm sure. But like metabolic resistance training workouts a couple times a week. But we also, it adapts to what you need to do. So we have members who, you know, lost, you know, over 50 kilos just walking and following nutrition. So it's like, it's possible to do that as well. And then we have this amazing community where myself, our coaches, and all the people who are on the program are just with you and with all the members, and we're all chatting and sharing vulnerably and connecting. And I think that's what makes the journey more fun. We're not meant to do this stuff like by ourselves. This is why we're having great podcast conversations and wanting to share. It's like being in connection is this weird magic element that seems to make it all work really well. So, and again, we have, although I'm from the US, we have members from all over the world, over 100 countries. And so it's a really cool hodgepodge of people all
Amazing.
centered around the same goal of being healthy for themselves and their families.
Brilliant. So we'll put those links down below. And Anthony, thank you so much for these insights today. And I've really enjoyed this conversation personally. I've got some things out of it. And definitely we're both on the same sort of thing. And I love that you embrace everybody with their different situations and their different things, because that's very hard to do as a program, you know,
For sure.
Someone who's building a program, to do that and to create that harmony within a group. Maybe that's a good message for society. Could we all do that? That'd be nice. Allow everybody to be different, but all on a mission together. That would be great. Yes. So Anthony, thank you, Dr. Anthony. I really appreciate you. And we'll put all the links down below. And I look forward to being on the Fit Mother Project podcast at some stage in the near future. So, and greetings to the USA from New Zealand.